Hello there and welcome back to Sleepy Tales by John. I'm truly very happy that tonight, among all the countless sounds of the world out there, you chose to sit down with me in this peaceful moment. Tonight, we'll gently explore the science behind one of the most beautiful places the Earth has ever created, the Aurora. That northern veil of light, soft as silk, slowly drifting across the sky like gentle thoughts just waking up. Imagine you're standing in a snow-covered field. Far away along the horizon, darkness is wrapped all around. Suddenly, a thin streak of light appears from nowhere, like the very first stroke of an invisible painter's brush. Then another streak, and then the whole sky begins to move, softly, as if someone were drawing colorful ribbons of light from one side of the heavens to the other. Something very ancient, very sacred is being awakened. For thousands of years, people could only look up and wonder at those waves of light, not understanding why the sky had turned into such a vivid sea of color. Only later did we learn that, far beyond our atmosphere, a story is unfolding between the sun and the earth. A conversation carried by particles, by magnetic fields, by unseen rivers of energy that the eye cannot perceive, until they touch the air and turn into light. The aurora is not just beauty. It is the breath of a star brushing against the soft curve of our planet. It is the whisper of the universe, sent gently down to the ground. And right now, if you enjoy exploring these quiet worlds, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts below. For now, take a deep, slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let your eyelids grow a little heavier. And imagine the sky beginning to open above you. If you're ready, we'll begin this gentle journey together. Before we step deeper into the northern sky, let's drift backward for a moment. Back toward the sun, where every miracle begins. You might see the sun as a gigantic hearth, quietly breathing in and out in the cold of space. Each of its breaths is nothing like ours. Not warm air leaving a chest, but streams of pale golden light, spreading out in all directions like invisible winds. They travel millions of kilometers, crossing silent space, weaving between planets, gliding past lonely asteroids, and finally reaching the edge of our Earth with a touch as light as a soft caress. If you imagine, very slowly, you'll see those rays like delicate strands of silk drifting toward you. There is no sound, no rush. They simply float forward, as though they've taken thousands of years just to find this moment when you are listening. When these currents of light touch Earth's magnetic shield, something strange happens. It's like letting a drop of ink fall into a glass of water. The way it spreads, swirls softly, and breaks into graceful lines. Solar energy behaves the same way. It doesn't strike hard, doesn't shatter anything. Elongated, it bends, sketching gentle paths around our planet as if the sun were writing letters to the earth in ink that has no color. Right where these two flows of energy meet, the sun's breath in Earth's magnetic arms, the aurora begins to form. So small at first that human eyes cannot see it. In the darkness, it's like tiny specks of light are just beginning to wake up. They brush against the air, against atoms of oxygen and nitrogen, like grains of dust touching the perfectly still surface of a lake. And when they touch at just the right rhythm, only the lightest little tap, light appears. Not with an explosion, not with a sound, but with a single soft flash, gentle as a sigh. Those first sparks, only a few tiny points at the beginning, quickly linked together like small candles being lit one after another. They stretch, curve, and open out like faint petals under the night sky. And suddenly, the quiet sky becomes alive, as if someone has opened a door to another world where light can dance, can breathe, and can tell stories of its own. If you could rise up high, very high, and look down at the earth in that moment, you would see the stream of light from the sun like a golden river pouring into the two poles of the planet. as though the earth were drinking in warmth from a distant friend. And the aurora is the trace left by that touch. Tender, delicate, yet more powerful than anything humans can ever hold in their hands. Our atmosphere, normally just a thin, fragile layer of air, suddenly becomes an invisible stage. The atoms of oxygen that once drifted quietly are now awakened. They dance to the rhythm of the energy. Each collision between electrons and the air is like a tiny bell, strike soundless to our ears, yet visible as light. If you slow your imagination down even more, you'll see a small green glimmer, like a glow at the bottom of a lake. A thin beam of light, fine as a strand of hair, drifting with the wind. A distant red streak, faint as an old trace of lipstick across the sky. None of these are illusions. This is how energy from the sun, after a long, seemingly endless journey, finally finds its way into our atmosphere and turns into color. And do you know what the most wonderful part is? Every time the aurora appears, it is the sun speaking to the earth. Not with words, not with sound, but with light. There are nights when that breath grows stronger, when the sun sends out small storms. There are other nights when it softens, like a fragile greeting. But whether strong or gentle, every time light falls across that frozen sky, people standing below feel as though they are witnessing something far too vast to ever be fully spoken. Are you still breathing softly? Keep that rhythm, because the next part will carry you deeper into the layers of color awakening across the night sky. A place where light doesn't have just one color or one voice. Every element, every layer of the atmosphere is telling its own story. And tonight, we'll listen to them all. All right, now I'd like you to try closing your eyes and then opening them very slowly. You'll see that the northern sky is no longer just a flat sheet of darkness. It feels like a gigantic exhibition hall, so wide that all the walls have disappeared. All that remains is a dome of light, hanging, gentle, and constantly changing. Inside that hall, two silent artists are always present. The first artist is Oxygen, a painter whose brushstrokes are soft, slightly tilted, always carrying a cool and soothing palette. When oxygen meets the stream of energy from the sun, it doesn't respond with violent flashes. Instead, oxygen lays across the sky a veil of pale green, mixed with a hint of yellow, like a thin piece of silk shaken loose in the wind. Sometimes, if you look very closely, that green shifts into a turquoise glow, then settles back into a deeper, mossy green, like stone at the bottom of a lake. It is the color of peace, the color of soundless forests, the color of dreams drifting on still water. And oxygen, with its humility and quiet presence, always places its colors in the lower layers of the atmosphere, where the light can easily reach human eyes. This is why most of the auroras you see carry shades of green, because oxygen is always patient, always present, always the first to step onto the stage. The second artist, Nitrogen, has a very different temperament. If oxygen is the painter of soft, flowing lines, Nitrogen is like a mysterious artisan who draws sharper, cooler, more enigmatic strokes. When nitrogen is awakened, often higher up in the atmosphere, it doesn't choose green, it chooses violet, sometimes tinged with blue, sometimes stretching out into soft, pinkish purple, as delicate as a flower petal drifting in a winter wind. These purple strokes do not appear at the same time as oxygen's green. They usually arrive late, like the final artist stepping onto the stage after the backdrop has been prepared. And whenever nitrogen paints, it seems to use its fingertips to touch the sky, leaving behind thin trails of light like silk threads pulled gently taut in the air. Some people call that purple the light of mystery. Some call it the breath of the cold sky. But in truth, it is simply nitrogen telling its own story. A story that is not loud, not blazing, yet deep and beautiful in a way that is hard to forget. And then, when these two artists work together, the sky becomes a symphony of color. The way oxygen lays down the green and nitrogen traces its purple over it is like two instruments harmonizing. There is no competition, no overshadowing, only cooperation, creating a beauty no words can fully hold. If you look up at the sky just a bit longer, you'll see that change clearly. The green waves curling like a slow ocean swell rolling into the shore, while the purple lines above move like small birds gliding over a quiet lake. There are moments when the two colors blend. Green touches purple, purple embraces green, and both dissolve into the air like ink spreading on wet paper. That is when the aurora turns into a liquid. Not water, not wind, but a liquid made of light. And you, lying there listening to this story, are like someone standing in an art gallery where every piece is alive, moving, and gently looking back at you with soft eyes. Some scientists say that all these colors are nothing more than electrons falling back down to lower energy levels. But if you gaze with your heart, you'll see much more than that. You'll notice that each color carries a mood of its own. Green is the warmth of closeness. Purple is the quiet of untold things. Pink is the sky's delicate greeting. And together, they weave a harmony for which the human eye is the only audience. You can imagine yourself walking through that room of light. There is no floor, no ceiling, no walls. Only bands of color hanging, breathing, dancing in endless space. Every step you take is a step further into the light. Every time you tilt your head upward is another step deeper into the story oxygen and nitrogen are quietly telling. You might reach out a hand and imagine you can touch a soft ribbon of light. It is cool, but not uncomfortable. Light, like a silk thread carried by the wind. And it makes you feel as though you are no longer just watching the sky, you are becoming part of the painting itself. Then, as you take one more gentle breath, the story of these elements leads you to another layer of the sky, where the aurora is no longer just separate bands of color, but curtains of light, stacked upon one another like sheets of silk, slowly turning over. And that is exactly where we'll step into in the next part, a place where colors do not drift only in a single plane. They gather into layers, into bands, folding over one another like thin curtains being gently lifted and lowered by the cosmic wind. Each layer of light carries its own breath, its own rhythm of movement, its own quiet soul. Imagine you are standing directly beneath a vast celestial dome. Above you, the aurora is no longer a single winding stream of light, but an endless stage of luminous fabric, thin, weightless, and soft as the finest thread. The first layer is the soft green glow, the most familiar color we often see. It lies lower in the atmosphere, where oxygen shines with its calm and simple grace. This green flutters like the hem of a ribbon, sometimes trembling softly like the breath of someone slowly sinking into deep sleep. In some places, the ripples of color curve into great arches, like gateways leading into a more peaceful world. If you watch long enough, you'll notice that these waves of light are not random. They have a rhythm, they rise, then fall, then rise again. Like the sky itself is breathing, like the earth is following an ancient meditation, one humanity never heard the spoken instructions for, and can only sense through the language of light. Right above that green layer, you'll find another rare, more delicate, a soft reddish pink. This is the glowing fabric in the higher reaches of the atmosphere, where oxygen is a little hotter, more fragile, and a little more stubborn. This red is not the blaze of fire, not a harsh explosive brightness, but more like light reflected from a red petal being lifted by the night wind. This reddish-pink layer doesn't appear often. It's like an honored guest who only visits when every condition is just right. When it arrives, It usually lingers at the edge of the sky, tilted slightly like a curtain revealing the most beautifully embroidered border. It doesn't rush across the heavens, but lets itself drift along invisible currents, as if watching the green layer below and waiting for the right moment to blend into the story of life. Sometimes, if you're truly attentive, you'll notice that this red layer doesn't breathe with the same rhythm as the green. It has a rhythm of its own, broader, slower, and more mature, like an elder telling stories to the younger ones below. Then, slipping between those two layers, like a sharp stroke drawn straight across the sky, is the blue-violet light from nitrogen in the very high atmosphere. That purple-blue streak runs quickly, briefly, like a high note in a melody that you can only hear when everything else is utterly still. This blue-violet line is not thick. It is thin, like a single thread running across fabric. Sometimes it flares briefly, like a tiny flame, then fades right away, as if someone has drawn a quick stroke and then lifted the brush. At other times, it sweeps across the entire sky, like a night bird gliding over a lake, leaving behind a frail trail of light, and then is gone. It is the contrast between these three layers of light, the gentle green, the deep reddish pink, and the cool blue-violet, that makes the sky feel more alive than any imagination could. When you gaze at all these colors layered together, you may feel as if you're looking at the body of a colossal creature made of light, a being that knows how to breathe, how to move, how to bow when the wind passes, how to spread its wings when the sun's energy reaches it. If you watch long enough, you'll see that each layer moves not only horizontally, but vertically too, like curtains being drawn inward by a great wind, then slowly released again. The feeling is almost impossible to fully capture in words. It's as if the sky is turning over in its sleep, as if the darkness itself is adjusting its posture to rest more comfortably, as if you're watching a giant gently curling up beneath a blanket of light. And then, when you've been quiet long enough, the aurora is no longer something you simply watch. It becomes a place you are in. You're no longer standing under the sky. You're standing among those curtains of light, right at the point where the descending green meets the rising blue-violet. You can imagine yourself slipping a hand through the green layer, feeling a coolness like water flowing between your fingers, then reaching up to touch the red layer above, a gentle warmth like the breath of a late afternoon. Finally, there is the blue-violet streak, passing by as quickly as a tiny spark flying through a winter night. Those three sensations blend together, and suddenly you feel as though you're standing at the center of a small private universe, where every color is listening to your heartbeat and moving with it. And as you breathe in one more time, you'll sense that the story of the aurora doesn't end here. Because behind those curtains of light, there are other winds at work. Winds from the sun, carrying energy and rhythm from far away, drifting closer to continue the dance of light. All right, now try closing your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're standing at the edge of an invisible beach, a beach with no sand, no water, but with waves of light rolling toward you from far, far away. On the other side of this ocean of space, the sun is kindling flares and spirals within its blazing body. It looks like a gigantic cosmic painter, holding an ancient drum made of plasma, and every beat sends out a silent wave that ripples through the vastness. The sun's eruptions, what scientists call solar flares or coronal mass ejections, are no longer dry, distant terms here. In tonight's story, they are breathing drum beats from the heart of a star. The first beat rises, low, deep, and distant, like a drum struck in a valley of legend. The second beat is slower but stronger, like a reminder that in space, time never hurries the way we do. Then a third beat, like a long breath of fire, sending streams of charged particles out in all directions. These drumbeats of light never reach us immediately. They take days to cross the cold ocean of space. Slowly, unhurried, like a message placed in a bottle and set adrift on the sea, only to wash ashore one evening from the far northern horizon, carried in by the waves. When those waves draw near the Earth, they meet our planet's magnetic field, an invisible yet powerful shield, and are bent, stretched, guided like strokes of color brushed gently across paper. Those energetic particles fall toward the north and south poles, collide with oxygen, bump into nitrogen, and begin to tell their story through light. If you are lying beneath the night sky, you won't see the particles themselves. You will only see what they become: bands of light changing color, halos that quiver softly, twists of brightness curling and unfurling, like hair let loose in the wind. But if you listen with your imagination, just your imagination, you'll hear the drum of the sun within every shifting motion of the aurora, as if the sky were standing upon a vast stage, and far beyond, the sun is the one keeping time. One strong beat, the sky flares green. One long beat, a blush of pink rises like evening smoke. One soft, breath-like beat, a streak of blue-violet sweeps across the sky, then vanishes. If you look at the sun from our distance, it seems calm, like a perfect, glowing sphere, steady and constant. But if you could stand closer, you would see its surface as a boiling ocean of fire, with giant spirals flinging themselves upward like waves of flame as tall as the earth itself. Each spiral is an artistic decision, a brushstroke, a line of light, a whispered phrase written in fire. All of it will become Aurora days later, at Earth's poles, where the cold and silence of night are waiting. You might wonder, how can a place so hot, burning at millions of degrees, create light that feels so gentle? The answer is simple and beautiful. The sun is not just a ball of fire, it is the heart of the entire solar system. And the aurora is the message that heart sends to our world. There are nights when the sun erupts with such force that the aurora blooms like a grand performance. The bands of light don't just drift, they leap like green flames full of life. The whole sky feels as if someone has drawn back a vast curtain to reveal an ocean of light in motion. On other nights, the sun is quieter, and the aurora is just a few soft streaks gliding across the sky like a veil of mist, as if the sun doesn't want to wake anyone and simply sends a tiny, tender hello. And you, lying still beneath that sky, can sense the change in every shift of light. You don't need to understand it all. You don't need to name anything. You only need to feel. The miracle is this: whenever you gaze at the aurora, you are looking at the moment a star touches the earth, as a moment that is very distant and yet very close, very powerful and yet incredibly gentle, so vast and yet so deeply intimate, as if someone were lighting a candle just for you, in the widest darkness there is. And just as you begin to sink into that quiet, the next part of the story slowly opens. The magnetic rivers that carry light to the poles, shaping the ancient rhythm the earth has kept for billions of years. While we're still listening to the distant drum of the sun, beats that are strong, slow, and then soft as breathing, we start to notice something else. That light, even though it begins in the heart of a star, does not reach us at random. It doesn't wander lost through empty space. It has its own path, a secret route, as if the earth herself has gently extended a hand to receive each particle and guide it to where it belongs. And that path is the earth's magnetic field, the invisible river that is always flowing around us, holding our planet in a wide, silent embrace. If you close your eyes now, you can imagine the earth as a round stone placed in the middle of a flowing stream. But instead of water, there are currents of energy, soft, slender yet strong, wrapping around the planet like deep green threads of silk. The magnetic field does not shine. It doesn't vibrate in a way your ears can hear. It simply exists as a river no human eye will ever see. And yet, this river is what decides where on Earth the aurora will appear. The particles from the sun, when they come near our planet, are like travelers who have crossed an endless desert. They are tired. They are unsure which way to go. But when they touch the edge of Earth's magnetic field, they finally find their way home. A gentle yet unwavering force pulls them along those curved lines, guiding them down toward the north and south poles. Two windows, where the sky opens so that light can be written across it. You can imagine the magnetic field as a great river, a slow, smooth current flowing from the North Pole, looping around the Earth, gliding down toward the south, then returning again. No one sees this river, but everything above the planet feels its flow. The particles from the sun, those tiny, distant travelers, carry a long journey within them, and the magnetic field is the road that leads them to their destination. They dive into the atmosphere like drops of water falling onto the surface of a lake, creating ripples of light that expand through the sky. One atom of oxygen is awakened. One molecule of nitrogen is brushed by a passing particle, and countless tiny sparks burst into being, joining together to form the vast, luminous rivers we call the aurora. If you could look from high above, you would see two enormous glowing rings, one in the north, one in the south, shimmering like two crowns of light. Those two crowns, always shining together, moving together like two synchronized heartbeats of a single, enormous heart. That is the heartbeat of the Earth. The flow of Earth's magnetic field doesn't just guide energetic particles. It quietly tells the story of our planet in its own unique way. There are times when the magnetic field grows stronger, like a river in flood season. There are times when it weakens, like a river running low in the dry months. But no matter how it changes, it never forgets its purpose: to shield the Earth from the strongest solar winds, and to allow only a small portion of that energy to slip into the poles to create the most beautiful thing in the night sky. In the dark, the aurora appears like a memory, written across the heavens by the Earth itself, a sign that this planet is still alive, still breathing, still moving. If you stand somewhere far north on the longest night of the year, you will see the bands of light drifting overhead. Not hurried, not broken. They follow the lines of the magnetic field the way a dancer follows the chalk line on a stage, never losing their way. They stretch out like threads, then twist, then open like a flower slowly blooming in the wind. Every movement comes from a gentle bend in that invisible river. Now imagine you're lying on cold, soft snow. There is no wind, no sound, only your own breath turning into a small cloud of mist that fades into the air. And above you, the flow of the magnetic field is pulling the light down, like ribbons falling from the sky. They fall, then lift again. They tilt to the left, then slip back to the right. They curl and uncurl as if someone were combing the long hair of the sky. You can almost feel the dome of the heavens breathing very softly. Each breath is a new ring of aurora, guided by the magnetic field like stories being sent down from the universe. Earth's magnetic field has another curious secret. It makes the northern lights and southern lights almost like a pair of twins. If the aurora in the north begins to dance, almost instantly, the light in the south will move as well. Two skies, separated by tens of thousands of kilometers, yet moving together like a pair of dancers who have been practicing this choreography for billions of years. Somewhere in the middle of that ocean of light, you suddenly realize the aurora is not just light, it is the map of a river that only those who dream beneath the night sky ever truly see. And as you let your mind drift along that invisible current, another story begins to wait ahead. A story about rhythm, about the way light moves as if it has a soul of its own. If you close your eyes now and take a deep, gentle breath, the aurora stops being just a band of light hanging in the sky. It becomes a living being, a soft body made of light, a breathing soul. You'll see the light rising, then sinking, like the chest of someone asleep. Soft, very soft. And sometimes it curls in on itself, spins, races across the sky, like a whisper far away in the hollows of the night, like a blink, a murmur, a tiny gesture of something truly alive. Sometimes that light moves so slowly it almost seems still. Then, in a single heartbeat, it rushes across the sky as if someone has just called its name, slow, then fast, then fading, then suddenly bright again. A rhythm with no rigid rules, yet one that makes you feel very clearly that it is there, feeling, changing, telling its own story. Scientists say that every motion is just electrons falling into the atmosphere, colliding with oxygen and nitrogen, making them glow. But from where you are, lying beneath the cold night, with a mind that is gradually slowing down, those electrons feel like the tiny footsteps of a spirit made of light, walking above you. One step, another step, across the vaulted ceiling of the dark. You can imagine the aurora as an endlessly long ribbon, held up by an unseen hand and blown on ever so gently. The wind isn't real, and yet the light moves as if it hears something in space, as if someone were whispering directions, telling it where to go next. So the band of light bends down, then lifts up, then stretches out like a thin trail of smoke, shifting inch by inch to the rhythm of a hidden breath. Sometimes, the aurora is as narrow as a single strand of thread. It trembles like a hair caught in the wind. Sometimes, it bursts open into a vast curtain, covering the entire sky like the wings of a great creature extending itself overhead. Green, purple, and pink light weave together like soft muscles, moving beneath luminous skin. Sometimes, it runs along the horizon like a snake gliding over distant mountains. Sometimes, it moves quickly, as though someone has snapped a ribbon hard and sent it flying straight upward, disappearing into the void. Every shape, every motion, feels like an emotion magnified across the sky. And all you have to do is watch, or simply breathe, and you can hear what it wants to say. When the aurora thins and flows like water, that is the sky whispering, soft and deep. When it spreads wide and glows intensely, that is the sky laughing, exhaling strongly, sending energy down to the ground. When the light twists, changing from green to purple and then to pink, that is the moment the light shifts its mood, like an artist searching for a new melody in the middle of a song. See it now? The aurora is like a living being talking with you. Not with words, not with a clear, familiar shape, but with movement, with breath, with its own private rhythm. And the strangest thing of all is this: even though you never speak, it still answers you. The aurora has its own way of slowing you down, of softening your gaze, of making your heartbeat a little lighter. It doesn't try to do that. It simply exists, and that existence alone is enough to pull your mind away from the long, heavy day behind you. In that moment, you may feel as though you are standing before a gentle, wise being that has existed longer than any city, longer than any civilization, longer than the oldest dreams of humankind. And it is still breathing, still telling stories, still singing in light. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that the aurora has its own pauses, tiny rests in its dance, as if this being of light is watching you, listening to you, waiting for your next breath. And then, it moves again, slow at first, then hovering, then suddenly alive and busy for a few short seconds, a choreography made of silence and surprise. In ancient northern tales, people once believed that the aurora was the souls of those who had gone before, returning to visit their own sky. Some places said the lights were the breath of gods. Others imagined them as luminous spirit animals galloping across the night. Today, even though you know the aurora is created by electrons falling into the atmosphere, you can still choose to believe one more thing: that every motion of that light is a story, and you are the one being allowed to hear it. And then, as you follow that gentle rhythm long enough, the light begins to lead you to a deeper layer of the tale, a place where rare phenomena appear like special guests: the purple arc called Steve, the green picket fences, the dark rivers flowing quietly through the sea of light. On a certain winter night, when the cold wind slips through the pine trees and the sky is so still you can hear the snow landing on the roof, the green aurora has softened, curling like a thin veil of mist. And that is when Steve appears. Steve is not a soft, draping band like the aurora you're used to seeing. It's as if someone has drawn a straight, sharp purple line across the sky and then let it drift. You can picture it as a strip of ribbon soaked in violet light, stretched tight as if pulled from one horizon all the way to the other. Its color is not loud. It doesn't flicker. It doesn't spread out. It simply moves. Slowly. Silently. Just like a strange visitor passing through the night, leaving again without offering any explanation. Sometimes that purple band brightens, like the sigh of a wandering spirit, appearing for just a few minutes before fading away. Like a story that begins, but never quite finishes. Scientists may speak of hot plasma flows, of ion speeds in the ionosphere, but in the moment you look up at it, you notice only one thing. It is beautiful, like a message written in light, then handed over to the wind to be carried away. Then there are nights when the aurora doesn't stretch like a curtain or curl like silk, but rises straight into the sky as green pillars of light. They look like lanterns, lit along an invisible path. Their glow flickers gently in the wind, as if someone were walking across the sky, holding long candles in their hands. From the ground, it feels as though the sky suddenly has architecture. Columns, corridors, luminous hallways connecting where you stand to somewhere beyond this world. No scientific explanation can take away that feeling that those green fences are a subtle invitation from a distant place that human eyes have never truly reached. Some people say that seeing them is like standing before an ancient gate, where beings made of light pause to see whether the heart of the watcher is quiet enough. Strangely, sometimes in this sea of light, you'll see a dark band drifting through. Not the shadow of a cloud, not any solid object blocking the glow, but a moving darkness, a strip of sky that does not shine, sliding quietly between the shimmering auroral waves. It looks like a black river gliding through a green lake, reflecting the night sky. No sound, no light, no clear explanation, and yet so hauntingly beautiful that it raises goosebumps because of its absolute, untouched silence. You get the feeling that in that moment nature is drawing a bold little stroke across the sky for you to see, an empty space, to remind you that even light needs its own pockets of darkness to feel complete. And as you stand beneath that sky, you suddenly realize that every rare phenomenon is like a northern fairy tale, but not written in words. It's written in light, in shadow, in those quiet movements high above. Steve, the green fences, the drifting darkness. They all look like guests passing through the chamber of the night, appearing only once and then disappearing, as if they had never existed at all. You can stand there, your hands frozen inside your pockets, and yet your heart feels warm because of one strange sensation. The feeling that the universe is secretly whispering something to you. Something very small, very gentle, very personal. something you can only hear when you're standing in absolute stillness. No sounds of cars, no voices, not even the noise of your own thoughts. And then, the colors begin to change again. The green light stretches wider. The thin purple fades away. The darkness melts back into the sky. The whole heavens return to the familiar, gentle dance of the aurora. Soft, steady, breathing in a very slow rhythm. But you know that, in that brief moment, you witnessed something rare, something not everyone will ever have the chance to see. Just like life itself, sometimes it's the fleeting moments that stay with us the longest. And while you're still wrapped in the strange beauty of those passing guests, the sky suddenly feels wider, deeper. You feel as if you're being lifted up, slowly gliding through the bands of light, to see the earth from a different point of view, from above, from where the aurora wraps around the planet like a crown. As those strange visitors of the sky, the purple arc Steve, the green fences, the drifting dark river, quietly step back like performers bowing after a play, you sense the night changing tempo, not ending, but opening a new doorway, a new invitation, deeper, quieter, as if the sky were softly whispering, "Look from a little farther away." And so in your imagination, your body becomes lighter than mist. The ground softens beneath your feet, the sky lifts you up, and the journey expands beyond the atmosphere, beyond the place where the wind still has a name. You are now floating, very slowly, very gently, like a thin leaf being held up by a stream of air. The earth below is no longer just the place you stand on. It becomes a deep blue sphere, turning calmly in endless darkness. And the first thing you notice is not the continents or the oceans, but the auroral light wrapping around it, soft and fluid, like the crown of a wise and tender queen. Those lights are no longer ribbons of silk, the way you saw them from the ground. From up here, they are a glowing ring, circling the poles, like the arms of the universe embracing the earth. The green light spreads out like an overflowing breath. The purple pool coils like thin smoke dissolving in water. The soft red glows above like a heartbeat pulsing in the middle of the night. You realize that from this height, the aurora doesn't dance in patches, it flows in currents. These streams of light circle the planet like a giant river, but a river without water. Only energy, life, and colors that the naked eye on the ground may never fully see. If you placed your hand on the invisible window of an imagined ISS, you might feel a faint pulse coming from below, as if the earth itself were breathing. Breathing out light, breathing in the dark, breathing in the darkness, breathing in the deep stillness of space. The cameras of astronauts often capture colors that human eyes easily miss. Thin purple edges, as fine as strands of thread, tiny. Wish you my help. And long red streaks, like lipstick brushed across a dark mirror. They are like secrets the aurora only reveals when there is no noise left, when the entire planet has gone dark, and all that remains is the faint murmur of the sun sending its distant winds down here. From orbit, you clearly see something that's hard to feel from the ground. The aurora is not just light in the sky, it is a luminous mask worn by an entire planet. A cloak, a soft shawl that the earth pulls around its shoulders whenever the sun whispers to it with winds and plasma. And in that moment, you are no longer just an observer. You are part of the scene. You are not standing under the sky, you are in the middle of it. You are not simply watching the aurora, you are drifting inside its embrace. Looking down, half the planet is covered in shadow. The cities twinkle like tiny village lamps. But all that human light is just a scattering of small blossoms lying beside the vast flood of auroral glow circling the world. The contrast makes you feel how delicate human life really is, small, gentle, fragile, yet beautiful in its own way. Because even in our smallness, we still long to look up at the sky, to understand, to listen, and to tell each other the story of this life. You feel your heart loosening, as if all your worries are being stretched thin and released. The distance between you and the planet is no longer separation. It feels like a new perspective, where you can finally see the full beauty you missed when you were standing too close. From here, the Earth looks like a sleeping child, wrapped in a giant auroral blanket. A quietness settles over everything, a peace that only deep space truly understands. Then you look more closely at the rings of light. They're not fixed. They change constantly, like the softest thoughts drifting through your mind just before you fall asleep. Sometimes they open wide, like flowers blooming in the dark. Sometimes they draw in, becoming narrow and small, like the steady breath of someone in deep sleep. Sometimes the whole ring seems to squint, tighten, then burst open again into a wide, velvety band. And you find yourself thinking, maybe the aurora is not just science or light. Maybe it is the Earth's way of smiling, the planet's way of saying, I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still beautiful. And as you drift through space, watching those luminous rings embrace the blue world, you understand that the aurora, from this point of view, is no longer just a spectacle. It is a symbol of connection. A connection between the sun and the earth, between space and atmosphere, between light and shadow, between you and the entire universe slowly turning around you. And as that feeling seeps into your breath, you suddenly want to float just a little longer, a little farther, to fall into that soft layer of light as if falling into a dream that is very deep, very calm. And while you're still suspended in that gentle darkness, where the earth wears a crown of light as soft as breathing, you notice something small, but very deep. The aurora is not just something to be seen with the eyes. It is like a story being told in a language without sound, something that murmurs, as if the whole planet were tilting its head slightly, sharing a quiet confession. And in that same moment, you feel yourself guided into another layer of stillness, softer, deeper, like a second door opening behind the first door of the sky. This is where the story truly begins to close. Imagine you are still drifting, gliding like glitter dust in the air. No gravity pulling you down, no noise pulling you back, only gentle darkness, stretching out forever. And beneath you, the earth, glowing like a living emerald. But this time, you're paying attention not to the lights of cities, but to the aurora itself, those thin veils of light, always stirring like the planet's heart quietly speaking. Every band of light, every wash of color, feels like a sentence, a slow message sent from the sun to the earth. You begin to understand. The aurora is a slow conversation that has been going on for millions of years. A response, a nod, the softest touch between two distant worlds that are always watching each other. The sun breathes out its winds. The earth answers with auroral light at its poles. A silent bond that tiny beings like us can only watch from the outside, quietly feeling it with our hearts. And as you watch those polar lights brighten and fade like candle flames, it feels as if you're witnessing a wordless dialogue. No sentences, but feelings. No sound, but rhythm. No speaker, but a connection so mysterious you half want to place a hand over your chest to see if your heartbeat is matching that glow. You breathe out slowly, your breath as soft as the bands of light dissolving into nothing. You breathe in, and a light seems to stretch just a little further. There's a moment when you can't quite tell where the sky ends, where you begin, or where the true movement lies between the three. Everything blends together, like fingers intertwining in the dark. Then, you let your mind drift deeper, imagining the aurora as mist that is gradually thinning. Some colors begin to fade, like someone gently closing a book after reading the final page. And you understand, the story of the aurora, just like our own story, is not a loud story. It is built from the patience of time, the tenderness of light, and the harmony between two beings that never physically touch, yet always share warmth. You feel small but not lost. On the contrary, you feel that you belong here, belong to this vast universe, to the blue planet beneath you, and to the quiet conversation that has been unfolding in the sky long before you were born. If you listen just a little more, you'll notice the band of light pulsing in a very slow rhythm, like your own breath when you're lying in a quiet room. And then, slowly, that light fades like the exhale of someone drifting off to sleep. You feel your eyelids growing as heavy as a sky lowering its curtain. The whole world becomes a single vast room, with the aurora as the last curtain, softly being drawn. Now imagine you are lying back on the planet itself. But the noise is gone. All that's left is a gentle, embracing presence. The earth beneath your body, the sky above your head, and far away, the sun's breath, soothing the atmosphere with a touch as soft as a palm resting on a tired shoulder. I want you to feel this very deeply. You are not standing outside this story. You are part of it, part of the cycle of light, part of the sun's long, steady breath, part of the life that the aurora retells every night in its quiet, magical colors. You are a tiny speck of dust, but a speck lit up by the universe. A quiet point of light, never truly separate from the whole picture. In this moment, as your body begins to loosen like warm sand and your mind grows lighter, you can let that light lead you. You don't need to understand. You don't need to hold on. Just let go. As if you were drifting along with the last faint ribbon of light fading at the horizon. And as the colors dim, so slowly, so gently, you allow the night to wrap around you with its natural kindness. Just as the aurora cradles the earth, sleep is now opening its arms to cradle you. Listen to this final lullaby, soft as wind passing through a line of pines. While the stars are still shining far, far away, you too are shining in your own quiet way. Tonight, sleep deeply. Good night.